So on that positive note, we have a wonderful keynote speaker, and she is going to be talking about designing diversity into tech, a very hot topic for all of us here. And she is the founder of NewME Accelerator and also the founder and publisher of Black Web 2.0, Angela Benton. Please come on up.
Okay, I hope everyone can hear me. I talk kind of soft, so I'll try to amplify. It's so great to be here today, and when Paula emailed to ask if I could participate as a keynote, I was so excited. I was like, absolutely, girl power. So I came a little late. I haven't been able to see many of the sessions, but even just coming here, today, I can definitely feel all the love in the room. So thanks for having me. I'm going to talk, of course, about designing diversity into technology, but first I want to back up a little bit and talk a little bit about NewME and NewME Accelerator, because I realize there are a lot of people here from various aspects of business and technology. And how many people know what an accelerator is? Okay, so I'm glad I started there. So an accelerator is basically a program where entrepreneurs can bring their ideas almost into like an incubator, but whereas incubators are generally longer term kind of solutions, accelerators literally accelerate an individual's idea. And they do it through a lot of different methods. Sometimes it's capital, a lot of times and most often it's mentorship through a network, so a network like this or a network in Silicon Valley. NewME, we actually offer, in addition to mentorship, speakers into the program, and our program is 12 weeks long, and that's also kind of standard for these types of programs. One thing that's really different, though, about NewME is that we're a residential accelerator, which means folks from around the country come to Silicon Valley and they live together, basically like you're in college for about 12 weeks. So you can imagine everyone being really, really excited when they come into the program, but by the time they're at the end of the program, they are certainly ready to go. They really are. But they've learned a lot, and what we try to do at the end of the program is infuse them with a really robust network of investors so that they can scale their businesses and launch their businesses. And so that kind of in a nutshell is what an accelerator is and what NewME is. Another way we're kind of different, and also why I'm so kind of in love with WITI and WITI's mission is it's really similar to NewME. And what we're really trying to do is diversify the technology industry through really direct impact, which is part of the reason why we actually bring folks here to Silicon Valley. We focus on women, Latinos, and African Americans, and those are people that you don't typically see in the technology industry. I started in the technology industry really several years ago, and it never really occurred to me that I was kind of the only one who looked like me. I mean, I always kind of saw it, but it never really occurred to me until I do have a design background, but I was working as a front-end engineer at the time. And I was doing some very basic code, HTML or something like that, and this guy, like in the marketing side, he was an SEO guy, and so I hope I don't offend any marketing guys here, but of course, he wanted to correct kind of the work that I was doing. And it turns out that I hadn't done anything wrong on the code, and nothing was wrong on the back end or infrastructure side at all, but his kind of critique of my work, it really made me second guess myself. And that was kind of astounding to me. And that was really kind of the point where I realized, like, of course I had this right. It was something that was very basic. And to have to second guess myself over something that was very basic, it was just kind of alarming. And I started to wonder how many other people who are like me actually go through this in the technology space. And so from there, I started Black Web 2.0, and I really got to talk to a lot of different founders and noticed that I wasn't really the only one who kind of went through situations like this. And that eventually led me to NewME and wanting to create more impact and make really more of a tangible change kind of in the industry. So with that said, I'm going to start out with a couple of quotes, and you guys can let me know. Most of you have heard these, but you can let me know if you haven't. So the first one is, women are the temperature of the household. Has everyone heard of that one? Most? Okay. I know everyone has heard of this one. Behind every good man is a good woman. So, okay, those are generally true. They're certainly true in technology, but for women, we really need women to be leaders and not be behind the scenes and not be behind a man and be in front and be those leaders to really make change in the technology industry. And that's really what I'm going to talk about today. We can really make change in the fabric of this industry that we work in 3 different ways, and I'm taking them from traditional design principles and elements. The first is color, the second is texture, and the third is balance. And so I'll kind of talk about these in stories of my life because I think that will be most entertaining versus kind of talking about art. So I'm a mom. I have 3 kids. My oldest daughter is 15, my middle daughter is 11, and my youngest daughter is 5. And my youngest daughter, she is the quintessential girl. She wants to wear pink every day. She wants to wear skirts every day. And it's always a battle how she's going to wear her hair. So one particular day, she's telling me, how she wants to wear her hair, and I'm listening, and I'm taking kind of mental notes in my head. And I proceed to kind of do her hair. And then we're on the way to school, and I say, do you like the way I did your hair today? And she says, I like the way I did my hair today. And I said, well, I'm the one who did your hair. And she said, yeah, but I designed it. And that really sat with me because she's 5 years old, and at 5 years old, she's already has the ability to understand that she can design her own life and what she wants to be and really can manipulate the world around her. And I think somewhere along the lines, as we grow older and into women, we lose that. And so we really have to take a step back and figure out what is it do we want in our life? What kind of industry do we want to work in? And we are really the driving force. Like I said, the woman is the temperature in the household. We are the driving force to actually make that change. And so that is kind of my first story, and that really is more about the color of Ava's personality and holding on to your color and not really losing that. The second is balance. And balance is really important because I think, as a mother, and, I can totally relate going into business meetings and not wanting to hear about someone's divorce or not necessarily wanting to hear about what other issues, a woman is having because you're in a business setting. But the reality of it is, there are a lot of different obstacles for women. And part of that makes it harder for us to succeed. Part of it also makes us more likely to succeed. The more I kind of think about even my own personal life, I had my oldest daughter when I was 16 years old, and from that time into this time, I felt like it was a constant, okay, this is my goal, this is what I want to do, now I have to figure out a creative way to kind of accomplish that and get there. And that's really what life is about, and it's no different whether you're dealing with something in your personal life, and it's no different than if you're dealing with something in your business life, or if you really are trying to impact and make change in an industry. You have your goal, and you really just kind of have to figure out how to get there. One thing that's alarming is all of the stats that really exist around women in the technology industry. The fact that C-level executives, women only make up about 6% of those. That shouldn't be the case at all. It really shouldn't. And so when you start to think about balance, how do we create more balance in the industry that we work in? How do we increase that 6% to something that's actually more realistic, like 50%, since women actually make up 50% of the population, or the 22% of software engineers that are women? So we really have to create balance, and I encourage everyone to think about whether you are in, a position where you can hire people, where, you can mentor people, the kind of things that I'm talking about right now, whether it's the color of someone's personality or the balance that people kind of are trying to create in their own lives. If you can kind of look beyond the typical things that you look at when you're hiring people or mentoring someone, what school they went to. Those are all the easy things that you can kind of use in your vetting process. But the things that are most important, that kind of make us who we are the things that tend to be overlooked. And as women, those are the things that also tend to make us stand out. The last thing is texture. And texture relates to kind of what I was talking about a little bit with balance. And texture it's really all of the obstacles that you've been through that make you who you are. So, for a long while kind of in my life, I really tried to hide all of the things that kind of made me, meaning I didn't really want people to know that I was a mom. And I really didn't want people to know that I was a teenage mom at that. I felt like that was a disadvantage. And really, that just added to kind of the texture of who I am. And really now, kind of in my work now, it actually, again, makes me kind of stand out. I got an email from someone, and it was really, really interesting because I didn't expect to get the email, but it really epitomizes what I'm talking about when I'm talking about texture. So with NewME Accelerator, not long ago, around November last year, 2011, CNN did an hour-long documentary on the accelerator and what we were doing. And it was great, and it gave us great exposure and everything, but what it really was able to do is it connected us to so many individuals internationally, and it allowed us to actually hear their stories. And it really allows us to make kind of the product that we're building 1,000 times better. And one of the emails that I had gotten is from a guy, Brian McKinney, and I don't want to totally, edit, because I am a writer kind of at heart, so I don't want to totally edit his words, but I do want to read you kind of a snippet of it, just so that I can make sure, you guys are really understanding kind of what I'm talking about when I'm talking about texture, when you're looking at mentors or employees or honestly, even colleagues. So his letter. Miss Benton, I first saw you featured in CNN's Black in Silicon Valley while incarcerated in Upper Peninsula of Michigan. I vividly remember running to my television and watching how you took a concept to reality. One small group of motivated peers discussed your segment for months after it aired. We had already begun a path to rebuilding not only our lives, but the community at large from which we hailed from. While incarcerated, for which I served 4.5 years for drug trafficking convictions, I created a prison to college program. I created this program with little funds and mild prison administrative support. We inmates studied college-level material through use of textbooks and no outside volunteer teaching assistants. Frankly, Ms. Benton, we were teaching as we learned. Our metric to measure our success, or rather our proficiency, was the College Board CLEP examinations. Seeing you and your group dialogue with the who's who of Silicon Valley was inspiring. I'm sure you would agree the most significant deterrent to increasing the ranks of minorities in the tech space is the lack of advanced math and science courses taken. Well, Ms. Benton, this is where my work comes in. Not only have I been personally successful in my studies, I have begun work that has allowed inmates to study advanced math while incarcerated. Currently in Michigan, a small group of inmates are studying college algebra, pre-calculus, calculus, and even physics. Placement is done on a typical assessment of current skills, and instruction is entirely overseen by peer inmates with advanced education, which is rare, but improving. I was even able to, prior to my release, convince the facility warden to allow graphing calculators within the prison. Not an easy feat due to the memory of the graphing calculators. That said, I was able to develop a pilot program that expanded from 2 facilities to several. My resistance began to subside after the results of the 2011 AP exams were published. I became the first inmate in the country to score a 5 on an AP exam. I know, I was floored when I read that too. It's pretty awesome. I knew through my individual success, I knew though my individual success would be futile if I could not influence more people who look like me to avoid making the mistakes that I did. My program work is now utilizing older, more revered inmates to influence younger inmates to return to society, not with just college credits that will make actually obtaining a college education feasible, but advanced skills in math and science to require as a requirement to the aforementioned program. As a Black woman, you understand far too well the influence of older Black males have on impressionable youth. My work now utilizes peer pressure to redirect the focus of violence and female degradation to that of advancement in a sector where we have been far too long underrepresented. In addition, I'm working on developing an online network that would help upload instructional lessons and allow for interaction with inmates that would increase the quality of instruction that we get. The network would allow volunteers to assist from anywhere in the world and also meet the security requirements of the correctional settings. So this guy is someone who was convicted and was in prison for 4 years, but regardless of his circumstances, basically launched a program, scaled it to 2 different programs in his own facility, and then to other prisons, which was basically astounding to me that he was actually able to do that and accomplish all of that, while he was in prison. And right now he's actually in college. He did close the letter and say that he's in college getting his 4-year degree in electrical engineering. But that is really an example of the type of texture that we all have as individuals, that we can actually start to weave into this world that we're in, where we really are so often, rubbing shoulders with, frankly, some of the most brilliant people in the world, but not necessarily people who come from a really diverse background. And one of the things that I loved about what you said is when you were consulting with HP, how they brought different groups of people together. And so, that type of pairing in product development is something that is generally used, but I really feel like if we can also get to a place where we start to pair people who have different backgrounds as well, so that we're pushing and really innovating and not really leaving anyone behind, that's also a key element to really being inclusive and changing kind of what it looks like in the technology industry. So, I'm just going to kind of close with that, and we can actually go and take questions. I think we have a couple more minutes after that to take questions. But I do want to end with, stories like this they're just so important, and it literally is the way that we design diversity into technology, by making sure that we're being inclusive around the type of personalities that we have, so the color, that we are creating balance and pulling people from different backgrounds and making sure that people have texture kind of in their life. And there's no one better to be able to do it, of course, if women are the temperature of the household, than you to do it. So thank you. So I don't know if there's kind of a floating mic. I see one back there, but totally open to taking questions.
Hello?
Hi.
Thank you very much. That was a wonderfully colorful speech.
Thank you.
I'm working with a project that in the East Bay that's bringing fiber optic communication to a relatively small community. So I had 2 points to make, one thing and one comment, one question. My comment is that if we can extend our fiber optic speeds to your group, I'd like to talk to you more about that.
Great.
The second thing is a question. This is a community that has largely been a pass-through community, which means you're on the freeway, one side to the other.
Mm-hmm.
You don't even know that you pass through this community. A lot of people in the community, especially the old people that, old timers, not necessarily old of age, don't have email yet. There's a really strong diversity in the community. It's a new diversity, and I'm wondering if you have any thoughts on how to bring the people there, the diversity, into the 21st century.
Sure. So there was this study that I read maybe about 2 years ago, and there's this organization, and I'm hoping it does not slip my mind, and it probably will slip my mind right now, but they're actually based in DC, and one of the programs that they had is they actually took the youth that were in the neighborhood, and they paired them with elderly people that were in the neighborhood, and they basically, the program was specifically to have the youth teach them how to get on email, how to do research, how to surf, the web, and I don't have any data points, but it was hugely successful, mainly for a couple of different reasons. A, because you have youth who are, when I think about my 5-year-old, like, I have my iPad here with me today, but it's not mine anymore. It's my kids, so, and you guys know, kind of what I'm talking about when kids are growing up in technology. It's not something that's foreign to them, so they're really digital natives, and they are now becoming the teachers and the educators to people who are much older. But 2, these are familiar faces too. So it's not an outsider because you're pulling from the community that's already there. It's not an outsider that's coming in to actually teach them how to do something. And so there's less resistance there. And so that's what I've seen, to be kind of most successful with communities that have makeups that are like that. Okay. Any other questions? No? Okay, one back there.
Hi, is this on? I'm here with a group of middle school girls from Oakland, and I'm wondering if you have any inspiring words for them as they begin to even start to think about pursuing careers in STEM. And they're right here at these 3 tables.
Sure, yes, I want to meet all of you. It's such a huge step that you guys are here and you're among all of these great women to begin with. So my thoughts on STEM is what I love most about the technology industry is you really actually don't have to have a degree in STEM. There are so many people that have degrees in history. I actually have a fine arts degree, and people are always like, how did you end up in technology? And it was really, I taught myself how to code and just kind of went from there. And so my biggest advice is to follow your passion. Technology is so far-reaching nowadays. It is, we had a founder that was in our last cycle, and what he's trying to do is basically change the way the agriculture industry works, and he's connecting meat farmers with his software and his platform, and giving basically people like us the ability to see where our meat was raised, how it was raised, and allow us to pick it up and get it delivered conveniently. And so my point in mentioning that is technology is going everywhere now. So if you have a passion, follow your passion, and more than likely, technology is going to be there anyway.
I think we should all be aspiring to have a strong man behind us.
Hear, hear. I love that. I love that. No more questions? I always get a group of really quiet people. I don't know.
Angela, talk about
Sure.
being an entrepreneur. You've stepped into a space that a lot of women in their careers will think about, but
Yeah.
are fearful of. So just talk about that inflection point for you and what that's looked like.
Sure. Being an entrepreneur and being a mother is actually a blessing because I can actually dictate my own schedule. And that's what a lot of women end up missing. When I worked for someone else, I had to be at work at a certain time. I was always rushing to pick my kids up from school. They were in before care and after care, and I was always the last parent, to get there. So that was a really hard balance. When I took the leap and the risk to really become an entrepreneur, all of a sudden, I was able to have more control over what I wanted my life to be like. And so that goes back to kind of designing what you want your life to be like. I was able to walk my kids to the bus stop. I was able to go on field trips. I was able to pick them up from school every day. And those are the things that are really important to me as a mother. And, any parents here know, my 15-year-old, I can't believe she's 15. I had her just like yesterday. So, it goes by so incredibly fast, and those little moments are kind of what make you a parent, and the more you kind of miss them, it just sucks, really, basically. So it just does. And so being an entrepreneur, has kind of allowed me that kind of a flexibility. And while it is really hard and incredibly difficult and incredibly challenging, not from an intellectual perspective, but being an entrepreneur, like most of you know, it is really, you have to have a lot of stamina. And you can't really give up, no matter how many people tell you, okay, that's not going to work, or, that it kind of goes back to what I was saying. If you have your goal, it's trying to figure out, how you're going to get there. You're almost in a maze where roadblocks are kind of being dropped down in front of you, and you're kind of bobbing and weaving. So that is incredibly difficult, but I think that being a parent also kind of helps me with that, because you can't plan who your children are going to be either. And, my oldest daughter is totally different from my middle daughter. My middle daughter, I don't have to tell her to do anything. She comes home, she does her homework. She's just like, great. My older daughter, not so much. And so, those types of situations, I think, have prepared me to a certain extent for the types of roadblocks that I see as an entrepreneur. Thanks. I think there was one more question back there.
And so it's like I feel guilty because I'm not being with my kid. And sometimes there is some very important meeting that I have to be there, that I miss my daughter's or my son's some show or their dance recital, something like that. So is that common? Like, is that around everywhere? Everybody feels the same way? And
Yeah.
if that is, how can we overcome that guiltiness? Like, I
Yeah.
feel guilty all the time, one way or the other.
Yeah, and I don't know if there's a way to overcome the guiltiness. Actually had seen Sheryl Sandberg speak on this topic not too long ago, and she also feels guilty, and I think it's just something that women do. I get to drop my kids off from school, but during busy periods, I don't get to do that, and so I'm like every other parent, and I kind of drop them off in the carpool line and wave by and give kisses. And I had a really rough kind of month where, I had a lot of work. I had very early meetings. And, one mother, when I came back to kind of drop my kids off, she goes, "Oh, wow, haven't seen you in a while." And I'm like, why did she say that? That's really what I was thinking, in my head. But, the more we can support everyone as women, I think that might be a way to get rid of the guilt. Whether you decide to stay at home or whether you decide to be an entrepreneur or climb the corporate ladder, we really have to support everyone. That's what WITI is about, is developing a network and a real support network. Okay, thank you. Oh, another one? Okay. One more, okay.
Sorry, I had to get this in. Um, in tech events, typically, it's way overwhelmed by men and way overwhelmed by, may I say it, white men. And so being one of few women in the audience, I have to say it's really rare for me to see women of color, of like any color,
Yeah.
in the audience. And so I'm wondering if you have any suggestions for coping skills to get through the schooling and through the sort of the initiation process to get to the point where you're actually able to be one of the women that represents everybody else in the world in a room full of engineers.
Yeah, so I'm new actually to Silicon Valley, and I've been here since September. And when I got here, one of kind of my advisors, Mitch and Frida Kapoor, they do a lot of really, really great research on minorities in the technology industry. And some of the research that they had done was around stereotype threat, which was something that I was basically foreign to. And basically what it is people who are typically outsiders, so women or women of color, if you are in a scenario where you're in a room full of people that aren't like you, whether you know it or not, your blood pressure is a little bit elevated because you feel uncomfortable. You don't see people kind of around you, so your body is actually going through these changes, whether you like it or not, and whether you know it or not. And so being able to kind of identify the situations that you are in and become comfortable with them. I think a lot of times as women or as minorities, we look at the situations that we're in and then we immediately start to feel like, oh, there's nobody here that looks like me. Who am I going to talk to? And that really comes from a level of insecurity, I think. So the more secure you can be with yourself, where you come from, your background, the better you will kind of perform in situations like that. There was also this other interesting study that they did around stereotype threat, where they actually took a group of, I believe, high schoolers, and the test that they did was around text messaging words of encouragement. So half of the group, they text words of encouragement every day for the SMASH program that they were in. You'll be a great engineer. You're one step closer. Keep going. And then the other group, they didn't. And so obviously what they were able to see, even on text message, is that constant affirmation. They outperformed, and those are the students that actually continued on the path longer than those who didn't get those affirmations. And so I don't know about any of you guys, but I actually have on my mirror, I write on my mirror with dry erase marker, and I have affirmations on my mirror. So I don't necessarily wait for people to tell me those every day. I read them to myself every day. So thank you.